right, hey, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Charles E. Smith, Jr. This is an Inside Sports production. You're in the studio here, and it is time for another edition of Football Talk. We're going to bring you up to date on all the latest in the National Football League. As you know, I do not do this show alone. I do enlist only the finest talent becomes one of my co-hosts. We're talking about none other than Chris Lardieri of Football Talk. Chris Lardieri of FootballNation.com. Little technical difficulty there. And also you can follow him on Twitter at Chris L. Sports. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring the man in. Mr. Lardieri from an undisclosed location in Southern California, fresh off of a Turkey Day jaunt across America. What's happening there, Chris?
Charles, thank you very much. Great to be here as always. You're excused. I have football talk on the mind, too. There's a lot of football in my title in this show where, as I mentioned in my column this week, we're like Phil Simms, who likes to say football during the broadcast a lot, apparently. But, yeah, we almost made it across America. We kind of got stalled at the Grand Canyon and came back, but it was great to see for the first time. And, luckily got to miss Ndamukong Suh kick Matt Schaub in the groin, among a few other things that were forgettable this past week. But back in one piece.
All right, fantastic. And then, FootballNation.com, we know you've got your weekly column there every week. So what's happening? What's the latest?
This week's FN Follies column, where I take more of a sarcastic / humorous look at the goings-on in the NFL. Yet again, I get to write about two of my favorite topics. I try not to, but they give me so much material, and that's the Jets and the Chargers. And the title of this week's column is New York Jets and San Diego Chargers Are Truly Sad. I mean, it's beyond the humorous at this point, and we're at the point where both teams had points in their debacle-type losses this past week where these might be turning points for both these organizations, similar to how the New York Giants once upon a time had the fumble, the miracle on the Meadowlands. Joe Pisarcik couldn't get the ball to Larry Zonka. Herm Edwards, who many of you now know as an ESPN analyst, takes the ball in for a touchdown. The Giants clean house, and they've gone on to win 4 Super Bowls. So for those two teams' sake, let's hope the Sanchez running into Brandon Brown's butt and fumbling for a touchdown, and the Chargers allowing a play which will now live in infamy as 4th and 29 to Ray Rice. Let's hope for these fans' sakes that signals a turnaround in both those cities.
We can talk a little bit about the Jets play, but how in the world? And to me, that's when you know a football team is just finished. There's certain plays where you know they are done. And to me, now you're up by 3 points. A minute and a half to play. You got the other team at their 37-yard line. And it's 4th and 29. How in the world do you – let's forget about giving up a long pass, a long sideline pass or something. But a running play? You let him weave through your defense for 30 yards?
Yeah, I mean, just a little dump off, and it should have been stopped 14 or so yards earlier, but Gilchrist and Spikes literally ran into each other, thus freeing Rice up. I rewound it. See, what a lot of people understand is here in L.A., we're subject to the San Diego blackout rules. Don't ask me why. The conspiracy theory in me says it's because the Chargers are moving to L.A., which may very well be true. So I didn't actually get to see it until I saw the highlights on NBC before the Giants-Packers game. But I rewound it 3 times because I thought maybe someone threw a tremendous block that laid out one of these Chargers. But no, they just collided into each other. Then at the end of the play, Bolden threw a great block on Weddle. Some debated whether it was a clip or not. But, I don't get it. I don't get it. It was the first thing I thought of. And I was actually in the car with my daughter after explaining to her why the game wasn't on. She doesn't understand the blackout rules either, which should tell Roger Goodell something in New York. But I actually was listening to the game on the radio, and during the play, the Chargers color commentator, Hank Bauer, said something to the effect of, "Oh, no," like right after Rice broke free from the colliding Chargers, and I think that just sums it up.
Yeah, and, you could give up – they could have given up 28 yards on that play and still been okay. Or 28 and a half. But, let's not even – it's above any there's no analysis needs to be done. The Chargers are just finished. As far as this current group of Chargers, it is the end. Done.
Yep, and, a former Charger who was there for their last kind of glory days, even though it didn't result in a title. LaDainian Tomlinson has all but said this team has quit on Norv Turner, and they've given us a lot of reason to believe that's fact.
All right, so it was the Thanksgiving Day games last week, and we got to look at what was the worst moment of the 3 Thanksgiving Day games. Would you say it's Domikong Suh with his groin kick on Matt Schaub, or the Lions getting robbed and the Texans getting a gift touchdown on just a bizarre rule that is in the NFL rule books, or is it Mark Sanchez running into his own lineman's butt, fumbling, and having the Patriots just pick that ball up for a fumble 6?
Yeah, any other week, either of the first two would be championship contenders, but Sanchez wins hands down. I mean, when I saw the play, I thought I was seeing things. Then I thought it was funny, and then when I saw the replay, I realized how sad it truly was. Because not only did he run into his own guy, he got laid out. And like we were saying prior to the show tonight, if a defensive player had hit him like that, they probably would have called for a flag for hitting to the head, because that's how hard he went down when he hit Brown's butt, to be frank. And
right.
I've never seen anything like it. It was just something out of probably the first year expansion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I would expect it from them, not the Jets.
Yeah, I'd love to hear how Coach John McKay would have described that if that had happened to happen to his team back in the day. All right, well, I don't know if you've known about this, but this has just come out today. Brandon Marshall, wide receiver for the Chicago Bears now, formerly of the Denver Broncos and the Miami Dolphins. But we know about Adderall, which is something that the college kids use to stay awake when they have to study, pass tests, and all that sort of thing. I guess there's some NFL players that have been caught taking that. But here's the latest. Brandon Marshall claims that there are NFL players who use Viagra on game day to give themselves an edge, I guess because of the blood-thinning qualities that it has. And I'll let you finish this PSA for me right here.
All right, that's all well and good, but how do you run if you're on Viagra? That's what I want to know, especially if you're a wide receiver.
Well, the most important thing to remember is that, if you have an erection lasting longer than 4 quarters, make sure you call your physician.
Well, they go hand in hand, because a lot of times during these games, if I don't hit the pause button and my kids are watching the commercials, one of those, nice commercials with the cowboy talking about, performing and so forth, let's just leave it at that, comes on. And I basically have to pause it because I don't want to explain to my 8 and soon-to-be 5-year-old what an erection is and how long it should last. So, yeah, maybe it's good cross-marketing between the pharmaceutical industry. It likes to run ads on the NFL games.
Oh, right. So, yeah, now one other team, let's go ahead and move along from Viagra, just getting into the other teams. And, the New York Giants, people have been talking about them. Were they possibly slipping a little bit? Was Eli in a slump? And what happens is they go out and they spank the Packers 38-10. Now, in one of those little oddities this season, they're going to get to face all the teams that they knocked off to get to the playoffs last year. The 49ers, the Packers, and the Falcons are going to be coming up in a few more weeks here. But they go out, they whoop the Packers 38-10. And, I think that you should explain, you being a Giants fan at heart, you went with the Cowboys, who wound up losing to Washington, but you had picked actually against the Giants, who went out and spanked the Packers.
I have no defense. I should never pick the Cowboys. It's sacrilege in my house. My family's probably soon to disown me. I figured the Cowboys are on a roll. They play well on Thanksgiving. They were at home. I forgot that they're a Rob Ryan coach defense, and that RG3 was probably salivating in the huddle last Thursday. As for the Giants, I base that solely on the November jinx and the fact that last year the Packers came into Giant Stadium and in a great game, a shootout. I figured it would be a repeat of that, and the Packers would be looking for some revenge. But little did I know that the Packers offensive line kind of did their best Chicago Bears offensive line when they played the Packers earlier this year, and just did not protect Aaron Rodgers for squat. And ultimately, the Giants won the game at the line of scrimmage. So much pressure on Rodgers that he really didn't have time to throw, making their secondary look pretty darn good, quite frankly, other than one bomb to Jordy Nelson. So
Mm-hmm.
fault is on me. And I guess the problem, what I'm reading and hearing now, is not that Eli had a dead arm, but that his place in Hoboken got flooded out and had a lot probably going on, as did a lot of the Giants. So we're only kind of seeing now what kind of effect Sandy had on this team.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the other thing is when you look at the Giants, I think it really goes down to it's not really necessarily about Eli as much as who is an elite quarterback, by the way. But, I heard a disturbing term when I think they were broadcasting that game, and they said, well, there's elite quarterbacks, then there's some quarterbacks who are super elite. So are we going to have to deal with that now, too? Who is a super elite quarterback? I think they were referring to Rodgers at that point, though.
Yeah, well, I'll say this much. Whether Eli's elite, super elite, according to Phil Simms, not elite, at least he doesn't have a horrendous mustache like Aaron Rodgers had. My son was even commenting on how disturbing it looked, and I don't know if he thought he was a superstitious NHL player during the playoffs, but that thing's got to go, Aaron.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think with the Giants, though, really, the Giants go their front seven on defense. That's really what it comes down to. When their front seven gets after the quarterback, the Giants do well. And when that front seven seems a little bit lackadaisical, isn't quite plugging the gaps the way they should, then the Giants have trouble.
Yeah, it's strange because the Giants are a team that loves negative publicity. They thrive on it. And in the week leading up to the game, I was reading where some of the members of the defensive line were talking about that. It's almost like those guys, especially the Tucks, the Umanuras, the JPPs, love this bulletin board material. It gets them fired up. So guess keep writing negative stuff and doubting the Giants' front seven, and you'll wake up that side of the ball.
All right, and then another guy who played pretty well. How about Colin Kaepernick getting the start finally? When Harbaugh finally announced that Kaepernick is going to start. So a few weeks ago, Alex Smith goes down, Kaepernick comes in, and I guess that's now his job. And, like I said about Alex Smith, next time he plays in Arizona, he should get used to those surroundings because I'd say there's a 90% chance he's a Cardinal next year.
Yeah, the Cardinals are going to need a quarterback for sure. What I found interesting about this whole Kaepernick thing is Harbaugh was fighting it for the longest time and had us believing, well, a few of us, that he actually had two starting quarterbacks. Maybe he would do a little, put Tebow out on the in the flank or something. I don't know, but he kept insisting they had two starting quarterbacks, and I think he finally had to give in now. And I know the guys on the Fox pregame show really love debating this. They're going to get some mileage out of it, as Kaepernick's got the hot hand. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I agree. Alex Smith's days look like they're numbered in San Francisco. If there are any number of teams that could use him at this point, but good call on the Cardinals. That is a team with just atrocious problems at quarterback.
Yep, and they play another team with atrocious problems at quarterback in the New York Jets this week, and what's bound to be just a a bumbling, fumbling, mistake-filled snooze fest of a game out there in the Meadowlands.
Yeah, it'll evoke memories of the Browning-Nagel era at the Meadowlands. Exactly.
There you go. So, and I only remember really one in the modern era as far as two starting quarterbacks. You remember Woodstock, which actually made it to the Super Bowl there for Don Shula and the Dolphins.
Yeah, and didn't Strock the year before they made it to the Super Bowl, wasn't the one they brought him before halftime to throw that infamous hook and lateral play to Tony Nathan in that epic game against the Chargers, the overtime game?
Absolutely. Yep. That was Don Strock.
Right. I still got the memory, Charles.
Yep. He was a modern-day Earl Morrall. Now I'm really taking you back.
I vaguely remember him. I know watching NFL films, I know about him.
Okay, everybody. So now it's time for our favorite segment and everyone else's. We're going to go ahead and get to the picks of the week. What do you say, Mr. Lardieri?
Go ahead. Let's review my atrocious performance from last week and move forward.
All right, picks of the week. Well, last week, I did okay. I went 4-3. Chris goes 3-4. So on the season, I'm at 47-28. Chris now one game behind at 46-29. We'll see how we do this week, though. Some big games coming up, and we look at the kind of a logjam of teams that we have in the. If you look at the NFC, a lot of teams at 6-5 and a lot of teams at 5-6. It's a little bit more clear in the AFC, but that NFC, you're going to see a lot of desperate teams doing a lot of desperate things in these weeks to come. And we start out the Thursday night game. New Orleans Saints, fresh off of getting their butts whipped by the 49ers, are now in Atlanta to play the Falcons. Saints, one of those 5-6 teams. Falcons still cruising. Well, you got to say cruising because they keep on winning. But another 1-point win. They beat Tampa Bay barely. What do you think? Saints at the Falcons.
I'm going with the Falcons. I think they're going to get revenge. The Saints gave them their first loss of the year. I think they're going to learn from their mistakes. And let's face it, the Saints' defense just isn't that great. Matt Ryan didn't have a spectacular day in New Orleans that Sunday, but I think they rebound. I think they realize they're going to have a nice long break here. And, even if Drew Brees get some things going, like we addressed on this show before anyone else in the mainstream media, the Saints were smoke and mirrors, not a real playoff contender.
And, I like that. That's why people, if you want to know about football, you listen to this show. If you got 3.5 or 4 hours to kill, you can listen to one of those other shows on NFL Network. Or if you really want to torture yourself, try the Dan Patrick Show on for size. Yeah, let's go ahead and move along here. So I'll go ahead and, as was suggested by one of our listeners that we kind of pick alternately as far as who goes first with the picks, I'll go ahead and pick the next game. We got the Vikings at 6-5 at the Packers. Packers at 7-4. Now the Vikings, what's the the status of the health of Percy Harvin? That's one thing, and also they're coming off of a loss last week, so confidence may be shaken a little bit. The Packers still got something to play for, definitely, because at 7-4 they're only one game behind the Bears, so they can still win their division too. They had won 5 straight before they lost to the Giants. At home, at Lambeau, I like the Packers to get back on track against what is a getting better, but still the Vikings are not a complete enough team to win a game like this on the road.
Definitely, and first and foremost, I'd like to thank our loyal listener, Ron, my coworker, who suggested this format. He was afraid Charles was stealing all my picks, and then I informed him that Charles was up in the contest. So much for that, but I do like the yin and the yang here. Thank you. I go with the Packers as well. I agree with you. Ponder doesn't have Harvin. They're really a one-dimensional team with Peterson, and for whatever reason, this is kind of a Seattle Seahawks type squad, not doing well on the road this year. The Packers are going to be stinging after the beating they took in the Meadowlands, and I think they rebound this week.
All right, and you know what? Good segue into the next game because you mentioned a Seattle Seahawks type team on the road. Another desperate team, the Seahawks, 6-5, in Chicago to take on the Bears. Bears at 8-3, and Bears showing they still got a lot of fight left in them after what they did to the Vikes last week. So, how do you see this one?
I'm going with the Bears. They really played well last week. They missed Cutler. Some in the NFL media circles suggested he might be the MVP because he truly is the most valuable to his team at this point. I don't like the Seahawks on the road. And, now that we're heading into December, there are teams like the Bears who are going to want to distance themselves and look for that bye week. And this is the type of game where they're going to want to chalk up a win. So going with Chicago.
Yeah. And with Chicago and still Chicago, they're feeling that heat on the back of their neck. That's the Packers breathing down their necks. And I think that here's the thing with the Seahawks. It's like you say, the one thing with the Seahawks on the road. But when I look at the Bears and the way that they play and the types of teams that they're successful against, it's really about that defense of theirs creating turnovers. When they do that, the Bears win. And the Seahawks are not at the point yet where they can take on a ball-hawking defense like the Bears have and come out ahead. I think that Russell Wilson is kind of a quarterback tailor-made as far as the Bears' defense is concerned for this type of a situation. So I like the Bears to, they're going to come out and take care of business here. And I think they'll win this one pretty handily, to tell you the truth. I got the Bears probably by 10 points.
A lot of agreeing again this week, Charles. Even though we mix up the format, we still think alike.
Yeah. You got to tell Ron that it's not about anyone stealing anyone's picks. It's about two dudes who actually know something about football talking. That's what it is.
Yeah, mixed in with a little common sense. It's pretty potent.
There we go. So let's go ahead and next game we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Came off of 4 straight wins. Came up short against Atlanta last week. Going into Mile High to face the Broncos. And well, the Bucs are 6-5. Broncos 8-3. I'll go ahead and take this one here. And I got to go with, I think the Broncos, here's why I picked the Broncos in this game. I look at not only the location, but you got Manning on one side, you got Josh Freeman on the other. I think you may have a little bit of the dynamic of Freeman trying to outdo Peyton Manning. The other part is in that mile-high air, I think that you're going to see the muscle hamster, Douglas Martin. I think he might start to run out of gas a little bit. When it gets to about midway through the third quarter, that's when that thin air starts getting to you. So you got Tampa Bay, who plays at sea level, going to play the Broncos in the cold. I got the Broncos winning this game.
Yeah, I agree for all the reasons you mentioned, along with the fact, kind of like what I hit on earlier, the Broncos are another one of these teams in the driver's seat to try and get a bye in January. On top of that, I just don't like warm weather teams going into cold weather environments like Denver, and I think Peyton works his magic.
Okay, let's go ahead to the next game here. And the Bengals, odd season because they lost their first game, then they win 3 in a row, then they lose 4 in a row, then they just won 3 in a row. So the Bengals 6-5 on the strength of 2 3-game win streaks in San Diego to face the Chargers. Now let's keep in mind, as bad as the Chargers have been, as bad as they're playing, they did come within 4th and 29 of taking down the Raiders last week. Here you got the Bengals in San Diego. How do you see it?
I'd normally, all things being equal, pick the Chargers, but after what happened last week and the fact that the Bengals have a little bit of momentum going here to kind of slice it and dice it, I really don't see how the Chargers are going to shut down A.J. Green. I don't know if people realize this. This guy is a monster. He's a superstar in the making. If he played in a bigger market, there'd be a heck of a lot of people talking about him. He's having a phenomenal sophomore season, and I think he and Dalton will hook up and put the Chargers, continue their misery. Let's put it that way.
Okay, well, I concur. That's really all I have to say about that game. No need to overanalyze the situation with the Chargers or the Bengals, and for the reasons that you just said. I got the Bengals, who are on a roll going in, even though Marvin Lewis called out the Bengals a couple of weeks ago, and it seemed to have no real negative effect on the team. In fact, it seems as though Andy Dalton has stepped up, like Marvin Lewis said he needed to. So it was something he said, blasted out there to the media, and created some cohesion among the team. So, yeah, Bengals are playing well. Chargers, I think games like that can affect you, and they can cause, really, literally almost brain damage amongst the team. So I like the Bengals to march in, take care of business, and come out at 7-5 at the end of the day.
Yeah, and not that either of us will see this game, so we'll likely be blacked out again, and I don't know why, if we live 100-plus miles up Interstate 5, why we don't get to see it. I don't know the fact that the Chargers will be moving to L.A. That's my prediction. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Yes. Okay. So, next game, the big AFC North, the Hate Bowl, the biggest rivalry in football, some would say. Steelers at 6-5 at the Ravens. Ravens at 9-2. Steelers, no one could hang on to the ball last week. I think, what did every running back fumble? Mike Wallace is not playing that well. Antonio Brown has been out. Ben Roethlisberger's out. Byron Leftwich is out. Charlie Batch is terrible. So it's really going to be all about the Pittsburgh defense, I think, trying to hold the Ravens. And I think that they're going to have to figure out a way to keep the ball on the ground, limit the possessions, play the clock. And this is a game they're really going to have to manage if they're going to win this game. And by the way, Rashard Mendenhall has actually been demoted to third string running back at this point. So you got Dwyer and Isaac Redmond starting in front of him, provided both of them and their offensive line are healthy. All that said, Steelers in Baltimore. Ravens have won the last 3 in this meeting. For some reason, maybe it's because the Ravens did not look that great against the Chargers last week, but I can't see them taking 4 straight from the Steelers, even though it's going to be Charlie Batch, and I'll admit Batch is let's see, there's mediocre, and what's below mediocre?
Tommy Maddox.
Yeah, that's it. He's one of those. I still somehow, I think the Steelers are going to win this game by just a few points. Call me crazy.
I'll call you crazy, or I'll call him Bubby Brister. There's another one below Tommy Maddox.
Wow.
I wish I could agree with you. I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. I think the Ravens realized they dodged a bullet. They got one of those quote-unquote lucky wins. I think it's a good kick in the butt, not a Mark Sanchez one, but that'll kind of propel them on the rest of the season. And ultimately, say what you will about Joe Flacco, I'll take him over Charlie Batch in this game.
Yeah, agreed. So really just going on a hunch here, but all signs point to the Ravens winning, but I'm going to go ahead and take the Steelers. And I do like, though, what the Ravens have done, and we talked about it, weeks ago when Ray Lewis got injured, and then Ladarius Webb goes out. But the Ravens pulled together, they've scratched and clawed, and sitting at 9-2. And still, they're having a great season. So, hats off to the Ravens, really, up to this point.
Definitely.
All right. Last game here. And you get to go first on this one. The Giants, that's the New York Giants, the defending Super Bowl champions that you picked against last week, against the Packers, are in Washington to face the Redskins. Washington's won 2 in a row. Washington's sitting at 5-6. They knocked off the Cowboys on Thanksgiving Day. Giants are sitting at 7-4. But this is a division game, so we know anything can happen. Talk to me.
Yeah, the calendar's going to be turning from November to December, so my November swoon theory goes out the window. Objectively looking at this game, I think the Giants have things turned around. I think they realize after facing RG3 in October that you cannot take this guy or the Redskins lightly. Coughlin will have his team prepared. As we were talking about in pre-production, the Giants do one of two things down in D.C. They either play a game that they should win, but they don't, make too many mistakes, let the Skins stay in it and they blow it, or they win handily. And I'm going with the latter. I think they'll win pretty handily. Now that the Redskins gave them a Thanksgiving gift and knocked off the Cowboys, they're in the driver's seat, control their own destiny, and it's time for them to rev up the engines in December.
Right. I agree 100%. And, that little swoon by the Giants, but I think they're fine now. And I love them to go ahead and take care of business, go in at 7-4, come out 8-4, in control of the division, and, well, hey, that's it. It's Giants time. It's getting down to time to get in the playoff run, and this is when the Giants seem to excel.
Absolutely.
All right, well, that's the picks. Before we go ahead and sign off, Mr. Lardieri, anything for the crowd out there?
Yeah, a few things I hit on in my column this week. It wasn't just all bashing of the Jets and the Chargers. This Ndamukong Suh play, I watched the replay. The guy's got a reputation. So what I did is kind of a litmus test. Is I showed it to my wife, who likes football but doesn't know Ndamukong Suh from a boy named Sue, and I said, "Watch this," and she said, "He deliberately kicked him." So I'm not sure what Roger Goodell's looking at. Few other things that kind of stuck out to me this week. As much as I think John Gruden's auditioning and saying that guy a lot while in the meaningless Panthers-Eagles game, it came out this week that if he were to return to the sidelines, ESPN's considering Trent Dilfer as his replacement. So I take back everything I said about Gruden. John, I like you. You're great in the booth. Please return in 2013. Coaching's not all it's cracked up to be. You got your Super Bowl ring. Thanks.
All right. Well, everybody, you know what? Thanks for joining us. And, of course, go to footballnation.com and read Mr. Lardieri's fantastic column every single week. Trust me, you will like it. That's a money-back guarantee. If you go there, I will pay you, let's see, how much should I give them if they don't like it? 22 cents. Just send me your email address. I would send you 22 cents through PayPal. There's a very complex formula I came to come to the term or the amount of 22 cents, and I really can't share it with anybody at this time.
Well, I give you credit, because if you're Willy Wonka, you would get nothing.
All right, everybody. So thanks for watching. For Mr. Lardieri, Chris Lardieri, I'm Charles E. Smith, Jr. This has been Football Talk, which is an Inside Sports production, and we shall see everybody next week, same time right here on Ustream.tv. You can watch us live, 8:30 every single Wednesday night, and then if not, you catch us on YouTube, as most of you are doing right now. We'll see you.